Welcome. Are you sure this isn't too loud? Sounds loud to me. I'll just have to get used to myself. All right, well, is everybody in here, did you hear me blah, blah, blah yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Just so I don't have to do any of the hi, my name's Mark. My name is Mark. That hasn't changed. Okay, so we're going to take every second of this time till 11:45, and we're going to talk about risk. So that's an hour and 45 minutes or so that we're going to be talking about risk. And I know that sounds horrible, like hopefully you know what you signed up for. We're going to do a deep dive on risk, particularly around wildland fire, right? So, you know my background, so torture was an official part of my training, and so now I'm making it part of yours. That's how this is going to work. If I had to do it, you got to do it. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to show a lot of stuff, and there's going to be a handout for everybody at the end of this thing. So I'll tell you if there's something that isn't in your handout, but otherwise you can get that at the end. And with that, I think we're ready to go. So do we have any, just out of curiosity, any post 9/11 military veterans? Couple? All right. Thank you. We're proud of you. Us old people, old former action people are proud of you. So you probably recognize something like this. This is a patch, like an embroidered patch. It's called a morale patch. It was made in Afghanistan, 2008. And you've seen, military people wearing them all over their body armor, their battle rattle, their hats, their helmets, and stuff like that. And this SF-88 is kind of like a mode guide, right? DNR, CNNF, all that kind of stuff. That stands for Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha, and then that number is its specific DEBS designator, Team 5's Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, Special Forces Group. And this little figure, it took me a while to figure this out. When I saw it, I'm like, I know what that is. And what it actually is, it's from the TV show, The Avengers. And I'm talking about the black and white TV show, The Avengers, the one I grew up with, okay? And this is a character who's a British guy, John Steed. And he had one of those little bowler hats. So that's why he's got the bowler hat. And he used to wail on bad guys with an umbrella, British umbrella. So that's what the umbrella is. Why a Special Forces team of people that none of them would have been alive back in when that show was on connect to this figure, I don't know. But what's most interesting to me is this statement. So what would be some thoughts about why would a Special Forces team connect to that statement somehow? What are some ideas on that? Shout it out.
Doing dangerous things, and sometimes things go well, sometimes things go not well.
Oh, that's for sure. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't go well. That's a reality of their environment. Other thoughts?
Don't count on luck, plan and train.
Okay, don't count on luck. Why? Remember yesterday, I didn't ask any hard questions? Yeah, absolutely, right. So excellent, right? And the way you overcome that is training and planning. Is that the other piece that you said? The mitigation for that, yeah, absolutely. So, does luck play a factor? Does luck play a role? See, some people yes, some people no. I'll tell you, is there anybody other than me that the only reason you're standing on this planet is because of luck? Okay? And now, what's your thought that it plays no role?
I don't believe in luck.
Okay?
I think you make your own way with everything.
So you make your own way.
And when you have bad luck, it was bad decision making.
So bad luck is a result of bad preparation or bad decision making, something like that. Okay? All right. So here's the deal. Let me ask you this: in your career, is anybody not in Wildland Fire component of the organization? Okay. What do you? And why would you subject yourself to this? Why are you here?
Because this is not something I'm very familiar with.
Ah, okay, great, perfect. Okay. So the application of this is to any high-risk environment. I'm talking about inherently high-risk environment, which we'll delve into. So that's the context, right? Wouldn't have to be wildland fire, but obviously some people are here. So let me ask you this: over the course of your careers, do you feel that your environment has become more complex? How many people would say over your career, your environment, your operational environment has become more complex? Put it up there. Yeah, okay, that's good. All right. I would agree with that. Because an inherently high-risk environment is one with these characteristics. VUCA, new acronym, right? We love acronyms. Everything in military, you got to have an acronym. VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. I just put all this stuff in the complex category, okay? So if in fact the environment has gotten more complex, more VUCA, I would say what has not kept pace with that is our ability to plan, operate, and support. I'm talking about the sophistication of our ability to plan, operate, and support within that environment. So would you agree with that statement? Or do you feel like you're keeping right up with that complexity curve?
We're definitely making advances.
Okay, so we're not just staying still, right? We are definitely making advances. That's what I heard. And I would agree with that statement. Are we making enough advances to keep up with what's going on?
No. We're behind the curve.
Behind the curve. So if that's true, okay. Now again, we said we're not staying still. We are getting better. This is the us line. That's the them line, or the it line, depending. Okay. So what's happening here? We have a gap. That is our relative superiority gap. Environment's doing this. We're doing this. What's going on? That gap is getting bigger. Which means success is increasingly depending on what? Luck. Okay? And what happens to luck? It runs out. Period. I will tell you, I know you can back me up on this, you are not going to see a lot of punctuation on a military patch. That's because we're not very good at it. And when you give something with punctuation to a bunch of Afghans in a little sew shop to make a bunch of patches, you get results that you're not happy with. Okay, so we don't do so. That period. The point is that period is meaningful because that is a statement of truth in their world and what I've seen now. Almost 20 years of working with wildland fire and other high-risk environments. So that's why we're going to be talking about risk. So I consider myself a risk professional. Now, I've got 3 letters in my degree, but they're GED. And yet, I consider myself a risk professional. So how did that start? Okay, so this picture, it looks like a colorized World War II photo now, right? So I've gone from like the Discovery Channel to the History Channel episode. But I'm not actually in that picture, but it was taken within a couple of days at the exact same spot of this story that I'm going to share with you. So joined the Army in 1979, 1980. I'm at Fort Lewis, Washington, going through this Ranger indoctrination program. RIP, perfectly named. Geniuses come up with this stuff. And basically, it's a selection program to get into the Ranger Battalion. So everybody has to go through this. They decide, can you make it, and all that kind of good stuff. And there's some training stuff too. Hence the indoctrination, not just selection. And one of the things that they want you to do is jump out of airplanes some more, because we're all a little fresh-faced. I think I was 18 by this time, and I just come from jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia. You jump out of a big plane 5 times, and that's good. But notice these parachutes have little holes in the back, and that's because you have to steer them, right? When you go to the 82nd Airborne, there's 20,000 of you jumping out of a plane in the middle of the night, a bunch of 20-year-olds. You do not want them all with capability of going. You do not want them exercising independent will at that point. That's not a mission-driven culture environment where you use individual initiative. You want to all go to the same spot, right? But in the Ranger Battalion, you have to be much more pinpoint. So you need to learn how to drive these, big rigs of steerable parachutes. And so you want to jump 5 times more, so that when you actually, if you survive and you get to your unit, you're not a complete moron. You're more like just 75%. That's the goal. So we were doing that, and doing the first jump. We're using helicopters to go up and down. And the first lift, a couple of my fellow candidates jump out, and their parachutes run into each other. And so this is a modern picture, but it represents what happens. So person number 1, person number 2, run into each other, and at about 300 feet, both these guys, their parachutes completely lost lift, and boof, down they went. And I will never forget it, because it was just like the Roadrunner cartoon. Wile E. Coyote runs off the cliff, boom, and the little mushroom cloud of dust, I swear to God, it was a little mushroom cloud, and that was the first thing that struck me. Now, we are prepared for this. We have ambulances and medics and all that kind of stuff, and they came out and they got them and took them off, and that was all very professionally done. Then we did the critical incident stress debriefing, where the jump master said, "All right, Rangers, let's go, that's stick." And we go get on the helicopter, and as he's buckling us up, he says, "Now you know why we train the way we do. Because the slightest mistake can kill you or one of your buddies." And it's like, okay, I understand my operating environment now. Death, injury, that's going to be a normal part of my, life. And that has not changed in the, almost 20 years that I've been out of the Army. So for 42 years or so, something like that, this has been normal. And, in at least from this time of this jump, let's say, because that was 1980, to when I retired, which was before 9/11, early in 2001. So during that time frame, 1980, 2001, we lost 550 special operators in our community. And at the time, that was Army, Navy, and Air Force. Now, since then, it's also Marines after 9/11. And that's out of a population of, when I started, about 25,000 people. And then by the time I retired, I've grown about 46,000. And of course, it's much bigger now. But give you an idea, so 550 people over that time period with that. And at the same time, that's a pretty high-risk job. But at the same time, that risk, that was a motivator. There was some adrenaline there, right? And so all these different environments, and this is my team in the Philippines. That's me, the short one. Not one of the ones kneeling down, but the short, I hit these guys, they were all 6 feet tall. And I'm like, I'd have to take a million steps to stay up with it. But all those environments, what they all had in common was they're all inherently high risk. They're all this VUCA land, VUCA land. Meaning, you take a bunch of 19-year-olds and you place them in this environment and it's not intuitive to manage the risks. You have to be taught about these environments in order to understand how to operate within them, within that risk, and manage that risk. Okay? So, every one of these had its own unique inherent risks that we had to be trained to and learn about. The funny thing was, near misses. By the time I was 21, I'd been in a C-130 crash, been in a big boat capsize, been shot at by good guys, bad guys, complete civilians, blown up by my own artillery, claymore mines, all this kind of stuff, right? A lot of near misses. And how many people in here will have had a near miss, what you'd consider a near miss in your career? How many folks? Quite a few, right? Keep your hands up and look around. That's a majority of the audience. So you know what I'm talking about. And the weird thing culturally was, until you had one of these stories you could tell, you weren't really one of the cool kids yet. You weren't really part of the culture yet until you'd had one of these near misses. We were not selected for our mental health, okay? We were selected for certain mental traits. Mental health wasn't one of them, as I came to find out over the course of my career. In fact, it was quite the opposite. So, and then when I got started about 1999, started working with Wildland Fire, lo and behold, I saw a lot of similarities. I saw a lot of the similar kinds of things. Granted, it was a little creepy to have a pilot. First of all, there's only one pilot instead of two, and he had a Grateful Dead sticker on the back of his helmet and a ponytail. That wasn't normal to me, but we're still flying around in a helicopter, right? Round, doing all that. That was very normal. So I started seeing, there's a lot of similarities here. And in fact, what we learned is that there's a gene. I don't know what it is. I don't know what any of this means. Except I know it's the gene that is common in people that are attracted to risk. Because every time you take a risk, it gives you a little zap of dopamine. That explains a lot. That explains a lot. I would bet it's more than just me in here that's got some of that gene in your blood, okay? I would bet. So, it's okay for risk professionals to enjoy risk, even to be attracted to risk. But it is also, because now, if you're sitting in this room, you are you're becoming a master practitioner of your craft. So you want to be a risk professional as well. You have a duty to mitigate that risk and make decisions around that risk. So, what do you think what risk level is our firefighters in most of the time, let's say, on a routine fire, routine wildland fire, in your mind? What do you think? Low, medium, high? Medium? See a lot of mediums? It's easy. It's easy to say medium. Okay. Have you ever been on an assignment where you got hazard pay?
We don't get that.
I know. I didn't say, does your agency pay you hazard pay? Notice I did not ask that one. Have you ever been on an assignment where somebody else gave you hazard pay? Okay. All right. I'll stop. Yes. All right. Yeah. I understand how it works, right? I do. The definition of hazard, most of it that I've seen, particularly on the federal side, that everything's all in CFRs, but it's basically, you're in an environment where you're using all your knowledge, skills, and ability, that the risk still cannot be reduced to less than a significant level. which is a lot of, bureaucratic stuff. But basically, nobody's paying you to be in medium risk. You get hazard pay because you're in high risk, because you can't reduce the risk to much below that. So I want you to think about that as far as understanding the risk. And we'll get into more.